Is a talk on the future of Energy Workforce Consortium, and that is brought to us by Quintin Taylor and Theron Williams. And here's a little bit of background on Quintin. Quintin serves as the Chancellor of River Parish Community College, RPCC. Quintin was appointed Interim Chancellor June 2022. After a nationwide search, he was selected as the full-time Chancellor. In his role as Chancellor, Quintin has placed an emphasis on student access and success, business and industry relations, accountability, and customer service through the concept of legendary service. This emphasis extends to business operations, enrollment, management, process, empowering faculty and staff, and investing in strategic outreach and communications. Quintin joined the Louisiana Community and Technical College System, LCTCS, in 2012 as the Executive Director of Media Relations and was promoted to Chief Public Affairs Officer and Diversity Officer in 2017. Quintin earned his undergraduate degree in Mass Communications from Bethune-Cookman College, his master's degree in Public Administration from LSU, and is pursuing a doctoral degree from Northwestern State University. Quintin and his wife have a 10-year-old son, and they reside in Gonzales, Louisiana. Mr. Williams is a distinguished leader in energy sector and 33 years experience. From starting as a process operator, he has excelled in leadership, diversity, equity, and inclusion, safety, talent development is currently as an America's Learning Solutions Manager. Theron gives talent development across assets. He chairs the Future Energy Consortium, serves on the River Parish Community College Board, and founded the Community of Love nonprofit. Theron also supports Uptown Music Theater, and Louisiana State University Leadership Development Institute. As CEO of Theron Theron J. Williams Consulting, he empowers individuals and organizations in leadership with strategy and with legacy and excellence, commitment to talent development and community service. Theron drives a positive change in the energy sector and beyond. Please welcome Theron.
Good morning. Pleasure to be with you today. Just to give you a little context of how we got here, right? So, as you may have heard in my bio, I did not come up through the ranks of academia as most chancellors come up through the ranks, right? And so I think that is great context for the discussion that we're going to have today. I think that's important because earlier during the OSHA conversation, the gentleman here at this table used the term lip service. And Jorge, I believe his name was, his response included honesty. And I said I wasn't going to tell this story, but I think I need to tell the story. So I've been in this role for about 20 months or so, about a year as the full-time chancellor. And during that first year, you go around and you have conversations and you try to figure out where your college is hitting the mark and where you're not hitting the mark. And I had a conversation with this gentleman, and it was very humbling. You know, your grandmother or your papa or whatever might have told you when you were younger, be careful what you ask for. And I asked him, I said, tell us authentically where we're hitting the mark and where we're failing. I know for a fact most people in higher education, and this is not a knock on higher education, but it's just a fact. Most of us in higher education sometimes, we ask for authentic feedback. And then we oftentimes come back and give lip service, right? In this instance, this gentleman gave me authentic feedback. And what he said was, 8 years ago, your college was the best in producing operators and I&E technicians and other skilled crafts. Today, not so much. Very humbling to hear that from one of our biggest industry partners who happens to have a site, a very large site, 2 miles from my main campus, another very large site, 1.5 miles from a satellite campus, obviously a global presence. And so that means we need to go back and do some things differently. That conversation led to us pulling our P-Tech and our I&E programs out of our technical division, still in the division, but out by itself, so that we can make strategic investments in changing that outcome that he was telling me that happened. And so that's how we got here. And at the same time, there was this perfect storm of, there's this energy transition. What I really wanted to know from him was, what do we need to do? Do we have the right instructors in the labs? Do we have the right equipment? Are we properly preparing people for really the unknown? And then how can they help us to get to where we need to go? And so that's how we got to this point of an energy consortium, Future Workforce of Energy Consortium. And so I'll turn it over to Theron now to kind of talk more in detail about some of that.
So now we don't need any of the slides?
My bad.
No, I figured this is how this was going to go. So I have to love the way Quintin is leading his organizations. because just like he said, I had given prior leadership that same feedback for years, and without little improvement, right? Through the course of me growing up in Shell, started out as an operator, but at some point I became the learning advisor who took in onboarding. And I had folks go to that community college to get the technical aspect of pumps, compressors, and such, right? And they came back with a pretty good result, but not what I wanted. I wanted assessments that was a bit deeper. I wanted information that was going to come back to me that we can use to improve some of the training that we had, as well as making sure that we had product that the students were able to really come and deliver. So after the conversation, I offered my help, and that pushed us into this consortium piece. But there's a why to all of this, right? So I'll ask you now, why are you here today? Why are you here for the Skills Gap Conference? A couple of people. To learn what, though? To
learn what our competitors or business partners are doing.
So that.
We can retain people.
Yeah. So the Mentimeter we did, it amazed me. We were at 34 and 35% on talent. Is either bringing them in or how do we retain them? How do we create an employee value proposition where they can come in and deliver for us in the ways that we need it? So you see here that 55% of human resource professionals and managers said that the skills gap is real. So last year we had this conversation as well, is real. So the question is, what are we doing in this place, in this consortium, is part of that solution, right? So can you move to the next one? You got it. So some of the challenges that I've seen in the industry, and I'm speaking from this as the chair of the consortium, which means we have a myriad of other industry partners that we've had conversations. And those conversations said hiring, retention, and upskilling is one of the challenges. The pace of the energy transition or the energy transformation is different for each asset, or each industry. So if I use Shell as an example, we are oil and gas, and we're energy. So solar, wind, hydrogen, we're doing it all, but we're actually very strategic about where we are, whereas other industry partners are going to be directly in oil and gas. So the product out of the community colleges, we have to make sure it can meet the needs of today and the needs of tomorrow. And how does that happen? The education system, is it positioned for us today for where we need to go tomorrow? So if you think about the Industrial Revolution, where we're in the manufacturing aspect, and we talked to procedures a little while ago, and it meant that we wanted to get a product of individuals that came out that could follow rules. But when we start bringing into digital solutions and AI, I do need you to follow the rules in the process, but I also need you to think a bit more critically. I need you to make sure that you're able to troubleshoot. Can you use these digital skills, like we just heard a little while ago, to be able to apply and get work done a bit more effectively? So when you think about the skills gap and the increasing population, that required us to do something a bit different. So when we brought the consortium together, I wanted to have a compelling message. And if you see here, specific in Louisiana, because we're in Louisiana, right? Look at what we're looking at. We're 50th ranked overall out of all the states. When you're looking at crime and correction, 50. The economy, 50. Education, 46. Not in the places you want to be. I believe that the work that we have been embarked on is going to change these numbers greatly in a very short time. Talk a little bit about the consortium and, I kind of did that. Oil and gas to all these other deals. Yeah, I hit that then. So I did a little bit of research on, okay, what are the future skills that we're going to need that meet today and tomorrow? Digital literacy, we've already had somebody come up and talk about that. Emotional and social intelligence, we haven't talked about that much. We talked about DEI, and we showed the value of being able to have different people in the room to think about something differently. I didn't know that about Apple, but I think that was powerful, is that, whatever a majority group comes in to talk about, it's groupthink. Being able to bring different people in with different perspectives allows you to have a more complete product. Creativity, multitasking, creative thinking, troubleshooting, being able to troubleshoot, I think is something we've taught folks already, but to be creative, to think critically, to move towards root cause, so that now you're solving the problems rather than just fixing things. And then the last thing is self-management and project management.
So let's talk a little bit more about the consortia itself. And so we've had about 4 or 5 meetings, and there were themes that continued to arise, and Theron just touched on most of those themes. And so we created 6 work streams. I think it's important to know that these work streams are chaired by members of industry, and it's supported by a member of my staff, and they're at the table working through these challenges and putting together strategies to address each of these that we're going to talk about. So the first work stream is refreshing and revising the curriculum. That's a heavy, huge undertaking. What's exciting to know is that NAPTA was already thinking along these lines, and so we got with Shannon, and I don't know if Shannon is here today, but I appreciate her willingness to really dig in deep and be at the table with us to look at how do we look at revising and refreshing that curriculum. Upskilling and reskilling current employees, right? Talent, which is really the reason why we're all here, right? How do we cast a newer, wider net, understanding that the demographics are changing, right? We've talked about that. Then also,
So I want you to dig into the talent one. So talent is, I believe, the biggest challenge we're going to have. So right now in our industry in Louisiana, I can say 5 to 6 years ago, if I put out 5 jobs, 10 jobs, I had over 6,000 applications, 6,000. Today, 1,800 to 2,000. And that's across the industry partners. So we're asking ourselves what's going on. So is the employee value proposition the right one? Or do we just have a smaller, shrinking pool? So I want you to share Donaldsonville
Sure.
when we start thinking about what that talent piece is.
sure. So Donaldsonville is a community in my parish, county, where our main campus is. And not to go down a rabbit hole, but we sit right along the Mississippi River. That river has history to it. I'll put it that way. That history includes the haves and the have-nots. And while my campus is only 10 minutes away from Donaldsonville, it might as well be 10 hours away from Donaldsonville, which means people cannot access it for all the reasons I'm sure you can read between the lines and figure that out. So when I got into this role, the thought was that we needed to have a physical presence in Donaldsonville. The college was in a bad shape financially. We didn't have the resources or the wherewithal to physically stand up a facility. Learned that there was some underutilized space inside the high school. We made an investment north of $2 million to where we've gone in already. We had the ribbon cutting 2 weeks ago, where we have fundamentally changed out what was there, and we have put in brand new process technology and I&E labs. We've put in welding labs. We've also put in skill craft training. So what does that do? In the day, the students who are on that campus, who, by the way, were previously being bused 45 minutes away one way to take some of these classes, but I digress. So what we've done is we've got students who are on site, built-in, captivated audience, taking those classes during the day, but then at night, we're opening it up to the parents in that community or the adults in that community who do not have the skills to get the jobs that all of you in this room have today. That represents that application pool that you talked about.
Yeah, and so
life-changing.
So you've just expanded that talent pool that he can draw from. I think it was Ruth that was up here earlier that was talking about those type of opportunities. So just imagine that the kids started as freshmen.
Yep.
So from freshman year to senior year is under dual credit, which then they're already positioned to almost graduate 6 months to a year later. That comes directly into your workforce. So let's say 5 years. So that's an intermediate impact. Then in the evenings, the parents come in, and they have the opportunity to do the exact same thing. So let's think about that. You're in the impoverished area, $25,000 a year, most of what that group is. The child is going to come out with $100,000 minimum, no overtime. The parent is going to come out $100,000 minimum, no overtime. You just put them up in the top 20% of economic out of poverty with the rest of everybody else for them to be able to live and do what they need to do. And we've just raised the whole organization. If there's more money circulating, there's more money going. So I don't care if you're in the top 1, 2, 3, 4, everybody getting something, right? So I love the perspective somebody said something about abundance, because there's enough for everybody. If we share it, there's enough for everybody. And I think this was one of the most powerful moves where for the first time nowhere in Louisiana we have a community college positioned inside of a high school with the dual enrollment for 4 years.
Yep. Then we've created this agile board, right, which is the consortium that Theron chairs. I need to go back because I said refresh. What did I read? Oh, we have it twice. Okay. And then upscaling our own instructors, right? This was really big. And somebody talked about folks aging out of, or retiring is probably a better word, out of the industry. A lot of those folks come to teach with us because they want to sow into and give back, which is great. But a great operator does not automatically equate to being a great instructor. Two totally different professions, right? So how do we ensure that this person who wants to come in and sow all that they've learned in 35 years in your facilities into our instructors, to our students? So we've got to do a better job of making sure that they are prepared to be instructors in our classrooms. One of the strategies around that, and I've got members of my team here today, Dr. Donaldson, that talked about us creating a world-class teaching and learning facility where we will onboard and teach new instructors and current instructors to improve their pedagogy knowledge, which is really, really important. Okay, then marketing and awareness. This is one that's really important because we talk about energy transition. We know what it means, vaguely. Joe Sixpack has no idea what the hell we're talking about when we talk about energy transition, right? And truth of the matter is, in some of these meetings, I can recall somebody saying, we've got to do better, and we kept it in here, as an industry, to face our sins of the past. That's heavy language, right? But it's things that we've got to, again, not going back to lip service and brutal honesty, and having those authentic conversations. I'll give you a quick example. There was an industry partner in Louisiana that will remain nameless, and they're in the CCS game, carbon capture, right? And they have a plan to inject carbon under a lake. Here's the challenge with that. There was no awareness, there was no communication to people who have grown up for generations on this lake. So when you tell me you're gonna come into my lake where my daddy and my great-granddaddy and my mama and everybody has, and I've lived my whole life, where my babies still swim, where I go out and fish, and you're gonna bury carbon in that lake? Like hell you are. Because you haven't engaged with me, you haven't talked through awareness so I understand what this is. And we all know carbon capture isn't new, it's been happening for years, right? So the point is that they took a beating from a public relations perspective. The work is gonna happen because the toothpaste is out of the tube already. But that could have been prevented had they took the time to just basic awareness. And then we've also got to do the same thing with parents, so that parents can know that your child does have a vital opportunity, a legit opportunity in these professions, and it's safe, and it's clean, and they earn generational wealth in the process. And in research and development, one that I'm really proud of that a lot of people don't associate with community colleges, right? We went out and hired a scientist, one of the brightest minds that I've interviewed in a long, long time, and he's here today as well, Dr. Thompson, to help us in this research and development space, to work directly with Theron and this consortia so that we can measure our learning behaviors and impact internally and externally. I'll let you take this one.
So these are the industry partners. These are the people that came together to make this work, and which goes to the very first analogy we had about these trees and these roots, is that we have to do this together. When we started this consortium in the very first meeting, I gave them 3 things to think about. The very first thing is, I said, I need everybody in here to be selfish.
Yeah.
What you mean be selfish? Well, you have a job, you have an organization, BASF, Dow, Nucor, Bango, it doesn't matter who it is. Be selfish because you're here for a reason. Why are we here? To learn from each other. So what? So that we can do a better job for our organization, for our community. So be selfish in that. What do you think that enabled the group to do when we shared be selfish? How would you feel if you're in that group and we said be selfish, what would that do for you? Anybody?
Stand up for my needs.
Say it again?
Stand up for my needs.
Stand up for your needs. What else? Honesty, right? Why honesty now, though? Yeah. What else? Be selfish. We're going to be selfish anyway. I was going to come in here and do what I had to do for my job anyway, but let's be honest about it. We're here to learn so I could take this back to do something with the organization. So we were selfish. But the next thing was let's be collaborative. Now, you can be selfish, but you have to share. And if you share all of this, and if we're holding on like these trees, give me that here. If we're holding on like these trees that we heard about this morning, no matter what winds blow, no matter where the energy transition is, no matter where you are in an energy transition, I have somebody I can reach out to. We can come into this community so that we can then move in the directions that we need to go. So I want to just give maybe a little more framing on the consortium and the different table conversations and all other conversations that Quintin and I had. Is when we thought about it, is we were going to need these group of people to actually execute this. So when we were thinking about who should lead each one, it was agreed that, you know what, we need to have industry partners as leads, and then the co-pieces would be RPCC. All right, so GNO Inc. is Greater New Orleans Inc. is also a partner that helped to kind of push this. So when you have the right people in the room and you're talking to the right people, then you're able to deliver that better. So each of those people that are leading a particular area is actually something they were doing anyway, and it has some insights and some research that's already done, and then we put some people around that to be able to make that happen. And so those work streams, whether we're talking about the curriculum, how do we make that curriculum a bit more expansive? How do we assure whether or not, do we need algebra in here? Or do we need to just reframe the questions that's pertinent to the type of roles we're going to get? Upskilling the instructors, the educators, and then the leaders in education about what do we have to offer in this industry, because we haven't done a great job of that. We're normally pushing our kids to four-year colleges, doctors, lawyers, and such. But when I started working at Shell, within 2 years, I was over $150,000. So how many people are leaving out with a master's degree and you're only making 60? That, with an $80,000 scooter load of you, right? So just thinking about that math don't math too well, right? So each of those work streams are intentional to make sure that we're enabling an ecosystem that will allow our communities to do that. Talk about your other colleges. And
Sure. So I'm going to give just a quick example of the selfishness and industry leading a work stream. Our friends at Air Products, they're building a new facility about 10 minutes from us. And Stanley said they're going to need 1,500 new people by 2029. 1,500 new people by 2029. So yeah, he's selfish. He said, listen, I'm going to lead the talent one because I need 1,500 people. Well, guess what? Shell needs, BASF needs, on and on and on. And so that intentionality and those folks being selfish was really exciting. So this logo here that says Louisiana's Community and Technical Colleges. So in Louisiana, we have a system. We're governed by one board appointed by the governor, and there are 12 colleges within that system. River Parishes Community College is one of the 12. Now, there is work that GNO Inc. did. They're an economic development organization out of New Orleans, and they represent the river region where we are. And there was a grant, right, that talks about H to the future, hydrogen to the future. All 12 of us have a piece of that work, right? And so this consortium is a way that all 12 are going to sit down, we are sitting down, right? So we do P-Tech, hydrogen, and I&E extremely well. We're getting better at it, right? We do that extremely well. That's what we do, right? And so what we didn't want to do was say, everybody stand up a P-Tech program. That makes no sense when resources are limited. So what we're doing is we're focusing on what is your expertise, and what does your expertise and how does it apply to what this emerging energy transition look like? Then let's take that and invest in it and put the principles of these work streams that you see here locally in Bossier Parish, in New Orleans, in Shreveport, on and on and on, right? So that's how collectively as a system, we're going to be working together to make sure that this energy transition moves in a way that we can all be proud of, but most importantly, meet the needs of everybody in this room and our partners in the consortium.
so, I mean, that's just kind of a picture, I hope, that you're seeing that's moving in this space. We have a group of individuals that are on purpose about engaging, developing talent, developing the people within our organizations so that we can kind of keep this thing moving. So that's pretty much it for you guys. Any questions?
Sorry. Any questions? All right, Mr. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, we indicated that you built a facility inside of the high school. Getting the children to buy into it. Did y'all really pull it from the like 3AP program, GT, and Talented, or did you open it up to everyone who's interested in it?
It's open for any student in that building who's interested in learning about careers in industry, right?
I would just like to say that's very powerful because I started my career being actually a 7th, 8th grade algebra teacher, and I understand a lot of those children don't have an idea of where they want to go, and giving them some type of idea, okay, some type of direction right there where they go to school every day is very powerful. So I commend you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. I'll give you just another thing that connects in is about exposure. So when they see the Becton or they see Dow, Nucor, BASF walking through the school or showing up in their reds, blues, greens, what do? Right? And that's an impressionable time for sure, is that if you're dealing with freshmen in high school and moving up and they see some consistency, they start to ask questions. And asking those questions then exposes them to the industry a bit differently, which then allows us to be able to then sow into them.
And then what I would also say really quickly is these facilities, they're behind gates. Nobody knows what the hell y'all do. I mean, nobody knows. And it's right in their neighborhood. So they have the faintest idea that, yeah, I can work in there. And so you heard me talk about what I mentioned, 3rd through 12th grade. So we're adopting feeder patterns. What does that mean? That means the 5 elementary schools that feed into these 2 middle schools that feed into this 1 high school, we're being intentional. We're not talking about pizza parties and that nonsense. We're talking about introduction at 3rd grade, not just on the maintenance and operative side, but also on the business ops, finance, HR, communications, marketing. So they really know that there is an opportunity in their community at one of these excellent facilities.
It's okay, I can speak loud. Hello?
There you go.
Not that loud. Really excited about all the hands-on, the workshops, the welding. Have you guys had an opportunity to introduce virtual reality simulations?
Great question. So we have virtual reality and augmented reality baked into the programming. Yep. That is right, Paul, right?
So welding for sure, and we use who? Vuvio, all right.
Vuvio. Yes, indeed.
Plug.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Taylor. Mr. Williams, any more questions real quick? We're going to ready to break for lunch. I'm sure everybody's eager for that. So this is the last one beforehand, but we want to, yes, sir.
What about soft skills?
Yes, so soft skills will be a part of the programming. So full disclosure, we're starting with the adult training happens on March 24th, which is Monday. We're not implementing the credit or the non-credit for high school students until the fall. So we're still baking and building out what the programming will look like, but soft skills, what we call work ethic, life skill training, will be baked in, yes.
All right. Thank you.